So the question is, if we're not as dispersed, as scattered all over the place, how come our culture, has been able to influence people away from even where the slaves were of Yoruba origin, where they were concentrated? How did your culture travel that far? But so let's get into this. Reasonably precise estimates for other groups will eventually become available, but it is probable that Igbo and some West Central African peoples were larger and more heavily concentrated than the Yoruba. The Igbo in parts of the British Caribbean and some of what have been termed Congo groups in southeast Brazil. Yet, the impact of the Yoruba speakers on Creole societies, Creole basically means mulatto, it means be an outcast, like basically a mix of different things, of two things. So I want both, I want Arabet, toward a new society. So it says here, yet the impact of the Yoruba speakers on Creole societies that emerged in many parts of the Americas appears to modern scholars to have been strong, and in the light of the evidence presented here, out of proportion to the relative size of Yoruba arrivals. In other words, the influence that we have is out of proportion when you consider our numbers. But the question is not, let's celebrate that. No, the question is why. That's why I think he answers it, and we'll go to Louis Antoine, because he really went deep into it. So stay with me. It goes, let me read this one. It says, in comparison, that is with other African groups, the Yorubas contributed considerably more to Creole or African American civilization in oral traditions, especially as expressed in songs, religious rituals, stories, proverbs, and so on, as well as in various modes of family and societal structures. The main explanation for this is to be found in the strength of, listen, if you're Yoruba, please listen, you've got to be proud. You know the kind of pride I'm saying. It says, the main explanation for this is to be found in the strength of the civilization from which the Yoruba of the New World were extracted and taken away into slavery. In other words, I'll continue reading, but let me quickly say something. There's a quote by Archbishop Benson Idahosa. He said, a lizard in Nigeria cannot become an alligator in America. If he didn't die, he didn't die. What the Yoruba had in terms of the civilization at home was what they carried with them. That is why, even though they were not as many, even though they were not as scattered, they had more enduring legacy than other groups, because those other groups did not have that kind of civilization where they were coming from. There's no complex structure in Igbo society. None. Guys, there is no, I didn't say was, there is no complex structure. Do you know what it means to have a king? You guys think it's about somebody carrying a crown, say, can't be you. It's that, but it's that and more. Let me give an example. When Oduduwa created Ife as a city-state, there were 13 settlements that he banded together. I mean, there were issues before everything eventually worked out, but he triumphed, and then he banded the 13 together. After he became king, he had to do something to placate those people. In Ife, by the way, in Ife, it's called Esisun. They had to come up with a structure that allowed for them, it's like a treaty, that allowed for them to be part of what was going to be done. So they had to create a very complex structure that will allow for them not necessarily to be in the palace because they are no longer kings, but to also have, let me give an example. During the struggle between Oduduwa side and Obatala side, Oduduwa side won, but Obatala became a deity. Why do you think that happened? That's politics in religion. It's a deep, I won't go into it, because they had to make sure that even those people who lost were seen as part of society, and then they could create a formidable society together. Then you had to have chiefs or your cabinet, Iwarefa, and they were legislative. They had legislative duties. They were the legislature. Then they had to create Ogboni, that's the judiciary. right? So you have the legislature as the Warefa, you have the Ogboni as judiciary, you have the king as executive. Then you have to have quarter chiefs. There are different Ogbo. That's how we call it in Ife. Ogbo is quarters. You have different quarters that still existed today, guys. The quarters I'm talking about, the one I am from, is been there for more than a millennium. I'm from there. Every quarter has head. Princes like me now, I cannot become a chief. Somebody called me the other day and said they want to make me a chief. I can't. I'm a prince. So princes then have their own chief. It's called Shoko. We have our own. Then, so you have at the city level, you have the legislature, you have the and why do they have that, Ogboni? Because they make sure that, listen, the king has no absolute powers. See, in Yoruba land, if we call you Kabiyesi, it's akmole, it's respect. Maybe regular people cannot ask you, but people can question you. The Ogboni originally was the judiciary of the government, the judicial arm of government, right? Not the secret society it has become now and all of that, but it was secret, but it was more than that. After all of those things, now that is governmental structure, and this is, by the way, we have a prime minister. That's Obalufe. They say it's still there today. So Oni is there, but there's Obalufe, who is the prime minister in Ife. This same structure was exported to Oyo. Oni became Alaafin. Obalufe became Bashoro, and then Warefa became the Oyomesi. The Ogboni was there in Oyo as well. You move that to Ijebu, Ogboni becomes Oshugbo. It's the same thing. You have checks and you have oversight, you have checks and balances. This is a complex political structure that was created more than 1,000 years ago. Now that is for that too. You have not talked about economy. They had to create something like, if I had 3 toll gates in the 1000s, 3, where money would come, all to do are built a wall around the city and install toll gates, and then you have to pay tolls to come and trade. It was a major place everybody went to trade. People were moving into that place from everywhere, including Mali and Senegal. And this is not, he's just saying something to make himself happy. I don't have time. It's not about making myself happy. It's just the fact. Am I saying this to say, we are greater? No, I'm saying this to challenge Yoruba people to understand the fact that Nigeria keeps you thinking that we are all together. You are not. There's a reason you are the way you are. There's a reason you notice what's happening, whether it's in commerce in Nigeria or in oil and gas or in banking. There's a reason we're like that. It's not happenstance. What you see us doing now, even what I'm doing right now, what I am doing now, this thing I'm teaching, or I'm speaking here, this goes back before Christ though. It's not happenstance. What you see us doing now, even what I'm doing right now, what I am doing now, this thing I'm teaching, or I'm speaking here, this goes back before Christ though. Orunmila was a philosopher in Yoruba land though. More than 1,000 years ago, we already had a school where people were trained. If you read Akin Jogbin's book, it was called the Kedu. It's a school. How do you have philosophy as a course if you are hungry people and you don't know how to take care of yourself culturally, economically, spiritually, financially, politically? How do you have philosophy classes? Guys, we're having philosophy classes. I'm not joking. 7 years in school. Just because we're all in Nigeria doesn't mean that all this time we are all together. I can tell you your history. You just came around like yesterday. This thing I'm doing, Orunmila did the same thing using observation. There was spirituality to it, yes, but for the most part, it was based on observation. If one day, if I'm able to get people who are not extremists, we'll have a class, maybe it will be small. We'll just have conversations on the philosophy of Orunmila. You'll be shocked at how I've done it here before, but some people were just unnecessarily extremist about their religion. They don't understand that it's beyond that. What Confucius is to the Chinese is what Orunmila is to Yoruba people. And the way Confucianism was structured and practiced in even till today in China, regardless of your religion, you could carry Confucianism on your head. I was watching an interview last week of Lee Kuan Yew, and he was talking about the communist system that China, I'm going everywhere, I'm going back to the book, that China imported from Russia. And he said, what you see in China is not really communism like you will see it in Russia. He said it's Confucianism. In other words, the local philosophy influenced the foreign ideology they imported. That's the wisdom of Yoruba people. That's what the Awolowo did. China has 5,000 years of unbroken civilization. That's the Yoruba story. Not all this one. Are we Nigeria? We finished in 1960. You are demeaning yourself. Then you're talking to somebody who literally has a name meaning slave, telling you that he owns your father's house. The person who on a normal day, nothing could have put us together. I'm getting very excited. So let's go back to the book. What am I talking about? We're talking about what was responsible for the influence that the Yoruba people, slaves that were taken away. What was responsible for the influence they had in the new world? So let me go back to it and I'll try. Guys, I can't promise you that I'll be quiet because it reminds you of possibilities. I'm not happy. I'm not, we were great in the past. No, it tells you why we are who we are today. I have not finished what I was saying. No, I've not finished. I'm talking about political structure. The economic structure was put in place. Apart from the toll gates, they had to create a product in Ife in the 1000s that eventually changed the dynamics of politics and power in this part of the world. The product is not bigger than this, but that product became the mainstay of Ife economy and became the beginning of what made it eventually become an empire. It's called glass beads. Kojubailo. Glass beads. Inyu, Segi made it. There's furnace. There are materials for this that tells you the temperature that the thing has to get to, how the crucibles were made, all those things. Who came up with those things? I mean, there were glass beads already in Yoruba land, but by the time Oduduwa came, he turned it into Prada, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, everything combined together into one. That was what Oduduwa did. He was decked in glass beads to the point where the chiefs were like, oh boy, be like say this is a fashion statement, or it became a status symbol. Chiefs were wearing it. It was being exported. They were taking it everywhere. It found its way into Mediterranean, that's Europe, got to China, traveled everywhere. It was so crazy that by the time Ibn Battuta wrote about Ife in 1352, it was in Timbuktu between 1352 and 1353. He heard about Ife and then wrote about Ile-Ife 1353. Let Nigeria not destroy your mentality about who you are. 13. It was there between 52 and 53. It was while he was there that he wrote stuff about Ife. The things that those people believed in Timbuktu became the material or the research material that a man used in 1910 to discover Ile-Ife. The man's name is Leo Frobinus.